that's crying out for change. We rise with hearts and minds engaged. With every child, every choice we make, we plant a seed, the earth awakes. We see the beauty, we see the pain. We know the power of a single name, to stand for justice, truth, and grace, to build a kinder human race. We are the dreamers, we are the doers. We are the voices breaking through. From the classroom to the corner of the world, we're shining light, we're walking true. People, animals, and earth in view. We are the solution, me and you.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Institute for Humane Education. Welcome to our live stream experience on meeting this unique moment before us right now. This is a call to rethink what education can and must be, and to invest in solutionary thinking and learning. So my name is Michael. I'm the Chief Strategic Growth Officer at the Institute for Humane Education. I'm honored to serve as your host today. For more than a quarter century, we've been the global leader in humane education. We impact K-12 curricula in more than 30 countries and offer the only graduate program in the world, actually connecting human rights, animal protection, and the environment. And I'm so glad that you're here for this important conversation. Let us know where you're watching from in the live chat on the side. And today we're going to be exploring how solutionary learning can lead the way amid federal funding cuts and educational uncertainty. This is really not a lecture, it's a conversation that we want to enter in together. So drop your questions and comments in the chat. Everyone who comments during the live event is going to be entered into a giveaway to win Zoe's book, The Solutionary Way. Right there, and it's a really great read, so please share your thoughts and questions as we go, and we'll address them during the live Q&A. And if you're watching this as a recording, you can also let us know your thoughts and comments in the comments area. We've got a great lineup of speakers to orient us to meet this moment for education in America and the world, so let's get started. Joining us today is Steve, the Executive Director of the Institute for Humane Education. He's an award-winning superintendent and from the Princeton Public School System, and dedicated to helping young people live with joy and purpose. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Michael. I'm really thrilled to be here to join you, my colleagues, and people from all over the world.
Fantastic. We've got a lot of questions that were sent to us before this event, and I wanted to use this opportunity to really address those now. One of them here I want to feature is from Maria, and she's from LA, and she's asking, from your perspective, what's really on the line right now when it comes to the future of education in the US? So Steve, as an executive director of IHE and a former school administrator, can you walk us through what's happening right now in the education sector?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that question, Maria. I think to place what's happening today in context, we really need to look back more than 40 years to the Reagan era, which happens to be when I first entered the field of educational administration. In 1983, the Reagan White House issued what was a seminal report titled "A Nation at Risk." And it noted the importance of a quality education for all children, regardless of race or economic status. And it highlighted the risk associated with the mediocrity of that education in the face of one, a globalized economy driven by scientific and technological innovation, much like we have today. And two, a democracy that relies on all people having the levels of skill and literacy to participate fully in our national life. And, you know, Michael, I believe we are once again a nation at risk. Any analysis of the news today would suggest our economy is at risk, our democracy is at risk, and our education, which is the key to revitalizing both, is at risk. Since the pandemic, reading and math scores nationally have continued to fall. Student anxiety and disengagement have continued to rise, and 40% of the students who start college never finish. This time, however, there is no report from the White House. There is no call to action for our kids or for our country. There is no clearly stated purpose for education in America. There is, in my estimation, dismantlement and division. So we have an executive order issued in March that called for the elimination of the Federal Department of Education, and for all decisions about educational purpose and pedagogy to be made by the states and by individual families, which in practice are generally those families who have the means to opt out of public education. There is no current national agenda for public education other than the stated intention of withholding federal funds from schools that engage in what are termed illegal DEI activities, with no clear definition of what those activities might be. If those activities include not teaching about historical injustices in America, or banning books that offer perspectives from a diversity of lived experiences, or eliminating supports for students who need them, that is not a national agenda. I believe we need an agenda for public education that unites Americans across the political spectrum, one that is built around fully engaging students, and one that focuses on preparing those students to solve the complex problems they are seeing in the world and in their communities. There has never been a more important time to reimagine education for our country, which is why IHE is so eager to have this conversation today and to join with other individuals, organizations, and local and state officials to do that reimagining together.
Yeah, and that's, I think, so important, to really frame that. We have another great question from Nancy in Colorado, and she's asking, how will funding cuts affect your work? Obviously, we're in the space. There's been a lot of changes, as you outlined. Have the current changes in education had specific impact on IHE's programs?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to estimate what the impact may be moving forward, but I can share how the funding cuts have already affected our work. So on March 28th, the federal DOE issued a letter immediately freezing the use of grant funds for schools that had been extended from the COVID era. And around 16 states were affected, including one that was working with IHE to train really hundreds of its teachers in the use of our Solutionary framework to engage students in solving complex real-world problems. And so as a result, we had to cancel workshops for teachers that we had planned for this past spring, and we had to cancel a Solutionary summit we had organized for hundreds of students to be able to showcase their accomplishments. So it is having an impact already.
Yeah, thank you so much for highlighting that. And I wanted to also ask in terms, obviously it's impacting us, but it's also impacting everyone else that's in the space. So what has been, the human toll of these cancellations, these changes on educators, on students, on partner schools?
Sure. Well, let me say first that there are heroes in many schools around this country, regardless of the battles raging around them over what and how to teach. There are educators who are creating classrooms of care and safety, educators who are challenging their students to think critically and creatively, educators who are giving their students opportunities for meaningful accomplishment. And at IHE, we have the good fortune to be able to work with many of those teachers, and we are incredibly grateful for their commitment. At the same time, it's hard to move forward in the face of uncertainty. In April of this year, the DOE issued a letter to superintendents across the country requiring them to affirm that their districts would not engage in activities associated with diversity, equity, and inclusion, or risk losing potentially millions of dollars in federal funding for their districts and potentially face personal liability. The mandate of that letter is currently being litigated, but it has to have a chilling effect on what is taking place in schools right now. As you noted, Michael, I was a teacher, a principal, a superintendent for a lot of years. And I believe with all my heart that schools should be places of joy. Joy that comes from caring relationships, from challenging learning, creative expression, meaningful accomplishment, and joy that comes from building hope for the future. And the truth is that level of joy has been missing from most schools in the US for generations. It's not just been in the past few months, and we need to acknowledge that as a country. Challenge Success, which is a nonprofit associated with Stanford University Graduate School of Education, has developed a well-being and engagement survey that high schools have been using throughout this country for a number of years. It's interesting, their most recent results from last year, 90% of high school students are sleep deprived. 75% report exhaustion and headaches because of stress. Nearly 50% report that while they put forth effort in school, they rarely or never find school interesting or enjoyable. They are going through the motions. They are doing school. Only 13% of our students find school enjoyable. And only 42% feel they can really be themselves at their schools. So based on these statistics, it's not just our education system that's at risk. It's our kids, it's our students. And that means reimagining how we do school is not a political question. It's an existential one.
Yeah, that's well put. The I guess final question I have for you is, comes from Tyler from Chicago, and he's asking, how does solutionary learning foster not just academic achievement, but also emotional intelligence, civic responsibility, ethics? So I'm wondering, like, what role do you see solutionary thinking and humane education playing in answering the question of actually how we do schooling?
Yeah, it's a great question from Tyler, comprehensive one. And I'm going to let Julie, our director of K-12 and teacher education, dive into the specifics of that because she's brilliant and she will have some very on-point answers. But I'm going to offer this story as a response. So Renato he's a high school student from Chile, and he was part of a solutionary project last year. And he recently participated in an online panel to discuss his experience with educators from around the world. And he began by sharing that before participating in a solutionary project, he and his classmates would often think that they would be the last generation on Earth. I'm going to say that again because it continues to amaze me that he and his classmates would often think that they would be the last generation on Earth. The challenges they were seeing in the world were so overwhelming. Climate change, global conflict, hunger, poverty, destruction of ecosystems. And of course, they're also watching the inability of leaders around the world to actually solve these problems. And then they engaged in the solutionary process. They took a global problem, one of these big challenges. They identified a local manifestation of it, one they could wrap their minds and their hands around. They researched it deeply. They spoke to stakeholders impacted by it. They explored root and systemic causes. They brainstormed solutions that would do the most good and the least harm to people, animals, and the environment. And then they implemented some aspect of that solution. The result? Renato told those teachers that their hope was renewed. They experienced that problems could be solved, and they began to believe that they would not be the last generation. They gained the skills of reading, research, critical thinking, ethical analysis, and they also gained agency and optimism. There are Renatos in schools around the world and across the US who may, in their own way, be wondering if they will be the last generation. They absolutely need to study algebra and reading basics, but they also need to gain the knowledge and skills to innovatively, ethically, and collaboratively solve the problems they are seeing in the world. That is what solutionary learning achieves. That is why we are working to make it the focus of education in this country and worldwide.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Steve. Really appreciate your insights on that and kind of laying out the groundwork, and also, in addition to that landscape, providing that kind of concrete example. Stick around for Q&A. If anyone has questions for Steve, please put them in the live chat. We'll try to get to them in the Q&A. So now you've kind of heard the why. Now let's kind of focus on the how. We've understood the wider landscape. We'll try to now dive into the K through 12 on the front lines. This is where kind of it all comes together in the real classroom. So we're thrilled today to welcome Dr. Julie Meltzer, IHE's Director of K through 12 Teacher Education, a visionary educator, and also a former Curriculum Leader of the Year in Maine. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks so much, Michael. It's great to be with you, with everybody who's joining us around the world, across the country. This is just joyful to be with everyone, to be thinking about these things right now.
Fantastic. Yes, yeah, we've got folks from kind of all over. We've got Brazil, San Francisco, South Africa, Nigeria. Lucia, thank you for joining us. Maine, of course, Puget Sound, there we go. Jordan, fantastic. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Julie, I guess before we dive into K through 12 work, I think we should probably look at, Steve mentioned solutionary learning, solutionary teaching. What is, we've got a question actually from Kathina, and she's LA. She's asking, what exactly is solutionary learning, and how does it differ from traditional models of education?
Thanks for that question, Kathina, and thanks, Michael. I think that Steve did a great job of sort of mapping out what solutionary learning can look like when he talked about Renato's story. Down to its simplest basics, solutionary learning is problem-based, place-based learning. We talk about think global, act local. This is about helping students to take an issue that they care about in their school or community and to do that deep investigation, talking to people who might have different perspectives on it, doing a deep analysis, thinking about what needs to change and what actions could they take. And then thinking about which of those actions would do the best for people, animals, and the environment. And then actually doing something, making a plan, doing it, and then sharing it, and continuing the cycle of inspiring others and helping others to get excited about the same type of work.
I love it. And connected to solutionary learning, right, is also the solutionary framework, which is something that IHE has developed, this proprietary framework. Miriam here is asking, how can educators remain consistent to including the solutionary framework in their classes? So maybe you can kind of introduce that. What is the solutionary framework?
Yeah, thanks for that question. The solutionary framework is a 4-part roadmap, really. And here it is up on the screen. It's got 4 phases. First, identifying a problem, then investigating it deeply, then innovating a solution that is MOGO, what we call MOGO, which does the most good, and then implementing, actually taking action. And I think the special part about this framework is that teachers can use it to actually plan a deep inquiry to meaningful action project. Then they can use it sort of as a roadmap to facilitate that project, to make sure you don't get stuck in inquiry and never get to action, or you jump to action before you've done some deep analysis. And then they can also use it to teach students and have students practice an ethical problem-solving process that they can use wherever they live or work or study in the future.
Yeah, and you mentioned the MOGO principle. Let's display that as well, because this is a lot of terms here. Define that for people as well. What does this mean?
So the MOGO principle is pretty core to our work, and it's part of what makes the solutionary framework a little bit different and solutionary learning a little different than several other models that are out there. It adds this ethical analysis when students are trying to figure out what needs to change, where can they make a change that's actually going to have impact and not just be a Band-Aid, that's going to address some root or systemic causes, and that's going to do the most good and least harm for people, animals, and the environment. Michael, as a species, we are really good at coming up with answers to problems that cause more problems. Yeah. And we're trying to think about, how can we educate students in a way that maybe when they get to be decision makers, this is included in their analysis and their considerations.
Yeah, very good. So with that, let's dive into some of those questions that we received, connected to our K through 12 work. We have a question from Miley in Alabama, and she's asking, are there specific subjects or grade levels where humane education is more easily applied? And just going to display, kind of some of our work here that we've done, with K through 12 education. So yeah, if you could kind of address what are some, what does, I guess, humane education and solutionary teaching and learning look like in the K through 12 classroom? Can you paint a picture for us there?
Yeah, well, I'll just briefly say that you can apply this framework in lots of different ways at all different ages. As you can see in the video, there's a lot of different ages, a lot of different contexts. But just imagine if we introduce students even as early as K2. When they're studying butterflies, they're also looking at the issue of decreasing pollinators and what that means for our Earth and what they could do about it. And then maybe in grades 3 to 5, near us recently, a group of students took on single-use plastics, and they studied it. They learned about it through field trips and talking to people, and then they decided how could they work in their school to reduce single-use plastics, and they were successful. And as one said, we didn't finish, but we can work on it next year because we're still going to be here. And then, as middle schoolers, maybe a team of students or different teams of students are all looking at, like, how could waste be decreased in their school or in their community. And then maybe in high school, it's in a chemistry class or an AP class or a 9th grade English class, or even a capstone project, very flexibly with students individually or in pairs and small groups, addressing issues that they really think are important in the world. And so it's flexible, and it's really profound.
Fantastic. And just one last question for me from Noah from Anchorage, and they're asking, can you share an example of humane education having a measurable impact in a specific school or community? So, I wonder, what are some of the real world issues that students are tackling through a solutionary lens?
Thanks for that question too. And we don't have time for me to tell you about all of them, but I will mention just some recent projects that we know about from hearing from teachers and students across the country, across Maine, the state where I'm in, and also around the world. So recently, this is just within the last several weeks, we've heard about these types of projects. We've heard 12th graders who looked at the impact of eating meat on their own health and on the environment. And they worked to ensure Meatless Mondays and to get education out into the world about that issue. Another student took on e-waste, working with a local organization that reuses, recycles, and actually really tries to return to the stream a whole bunch of the electronic waste, fast fashion, houselessness, food insecurity. And then within schools, students have taken on things like student mental health or bullying. The students, you don't need to give them a big list of problems. They know what the problems are, and they're really interested in doing something about them. And they're really invested in it because this is their future. This is their world. But I think we have to look at the theory of action here. So we need the teachers to coach the students to go through this process that includes that thinking and deep analysis, and then to actually do something. And then the doing something impacts the community, but it also impacts the students. If you take a look at some recent statistics from a survey we did of students, and this was these were projects across 5 countries, and you can see what the students said. So just imagine if we had these kinds of solutionary projects happening everywhere, and we had students who felt like they were better at cooperating with others, or they were more compassionate, or that they had more confidence that they could make a positive difference. How would the world change? Communities would change, schools would change, and I think life for all of us would change for the better.
Yeah, exactly. Beautiful. Thank you so much for highlighting that. And it's a nice juxtaposition, to some of the statistics that Steve brought out from that study about, how students are feeling disengaged, disempowered, and this is kind of like, it sounds like a new approach that really engages students in a new way.
I'm seeing it all over. It makes me have hope.
It's fantastic. All right, so stick around for the Q&A. If anyone has questions for Julie, definitely drop them in the chat, and we'll try to get them to them during the Q&A. So now that we've looked at K through 12, let's look at higher ed. With us today is Mary Pat Champeau. She's the Director of Graduate Programs at IHE, and she's got a decades-long global career in education, from the Peace Corps to the refugee camps to graduate classrooms, and she continues to shape the next generation of humane educators. So welcome, Mary Pat.
Thanks, Michael. Great to be here.
Yes. We had a really great question from Leslie from Colorado for you on how can we build a connected network of like-minded educators to create a larger movement. And to me, like when I read that, it really I think to the graduate program, because this is kind of really what we're doing, right, with the graduate program. If you could speak to that, it would be fantastic.
Leslie, I feel like this is a call to action disguised as a question. I'm looking at the comments right now. There are a lot of awesome organizations represented here and a lot of individuals. And I feel like we have networks. We already have these networks. One of the most important things is to make them visible. And I will say that I have been the director of the graduate programs here for about 23 years. Right now we're at Antioch University. And there are things that have changed about the grad programs. There's a couple of things that haven't. One is the kind of people they attract. These are people that connect, that have networks, that want to do good in the world. And one of the other things is we never stray from these core values of looking at the interconnections between animal protection, human rights, and environmental ethics. So these themes of connection and systems, as Julie and Steve talked about in K-12, we're teaching kids about systems thinking. In the grad program, we are going deep into the systems that give rise to these unjust, inhumane, unsustainable, unhealthy systems. And I feel like we just need to take that template of connection and systems into the way we operate. So, we are all connected. Here's this theme that we have today. I'm reading it. Reimagining education for a better world. Look at the hundreds of comments here. We are a network right here. This little live stream, it's the hub of a network. I feel like the most important thing about that question that Leslie asked is that we make ourselves visible, that we follow each other on social media, we share stories, we show up at each other's live stream events like this. You could go to the partner page on the Institute website, look at our partners. Go to their pages, look at their partners. This is a network. We are all people that recognize the power of education to change the world. Like Zoe has a book called The World Becomes What We Teach. I've been in education since 1979. I have never doubted for a minute that education is key, the way we educate. So anyway, I feel like just a quick thing I want to say about the networks is that storytelling is a great way to build the networks. A lot of students come into this grad program and they feel completely alone. They're a voice in the wilderness. They're looking for a community. Nobody in their spheres thinks the way they do. And they get here, they say, I've been like this my whole life. I never really knew there was a name for it. I'm a humane educator. Okay, not everybody in the network is going to show up on my door in the graduate program, but we are all out there. And we need to make ourselves visible as the system that we are.
And this is a good, great way to, I think, look at it. If we could drop actually the link to the graduate programs that Mary Pat runs in the comments, so everyone can have access to it. If you're interested in any of our graduate programs, whether you want to sign up to be a graduate student or just try out one of our classes, you can take a look at that page and contact Mary Pat, for additional details. And also, if we could drop in the SMC program that Julie runs, the Solutionary course for teachers, that would be really, really great as well. And then just one last question for you I have is from Joe from San Jose, and he's asking, are there any current examples you can share of business leaders who are intentionally applying, these solutionary principles? A lot of our graduate programs do go into business, or they're starting their own organizations. So I wonder if you could highlight that for us quickly.
Sure. Thanks so much for that question, Joe. Tease me up to talk about something I love to talk about, which is the impact of our students. I just want to say, I tried to add something to our comment chat, but I couldn't because I'm not signed into YouTube or whatever. But our graduate programs are offered with Antioch University. We are not a university, we're an institute. So speaking of the university, I do feel like a lot of people come in, they have a great passion, they want to change the world, they're willing to invest their time and energy. They're just not really sure how. And I heard this long ago, and it made a lot of sense to me that when we have a passion and we don't have a way to express that passion in the world, we don't have a way to take action based on that passion becomes a burden. And it festers in there like, oh, I feel this way, but what am I going to do? So I want to.
Some of our graduate students and faculty as well that are featured here.
Thanks, Michael. And so I just want to highlight one. There are many. Some of them are right here on the screen. But one student, Vinci Ho, she may be here. She came into the grad program about 7 years ago. There's Vinci. And she had an interest in human rights. She'd been to the UN University of Human Rights. She had been working in Hong Kong. She had a nonprofit. But what she was interested in was sustainable travel, changing the world of travel. And she went through the core courses, Intro to Humane Ed, Environmental Ethics, Animal Protection, Human Rights, Culture and Change. And she did a capstone where she envisioned this, she made a blueprint for a sustainable travel organization that educated travelers and the tourist industry to make travel a force for good in the world. And shortly after graduating, she launched RISE Travel Institute, RISE, Responsible, Impactful, Sustainable, Ethical Travel. You can look it up. It is 5 years old right now. Dozens of teams of volunteers doing amazing work, flagship programs, experiential journeys. They're amazing, really. And it's through the Humane Ed lens. We're looking at travel and its impact on the environment, on animals, and on humans, human rights, etc. Thanks for the question, Joe.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mary Pat. Stick around for the Q&A. Anyone has questions on our graduate programs or anything that we're doing to build the movement, please put them in the live chat. We are, now that we've seen what's happening on the K through 12 level and the graduate level, let's look at how, and explore how we can move forward. So we're honored to have with us today and be joined by Zoe Weil. She's the co-founder and president of the Institute for Humane Education, trailblazing author, speaker, and TEDx presenter whose work has inspired thousands to create a more just, compassionate, and sustainable world through education. So welcome, Zoe.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to have so many people joining us, and I love my colleagues so much, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Fantastic. So we have a number of questions. I'm going to try to kind of combine them, together so we can try to address them kind of overall. Just want to highlight one from Jonathan Austin. He's asking, what role should schools play in helping students become not just workers, but thoughtful citizens? Another one from Nadine from LA, who's asking, what role does humane education play in preparing students to be critical thinkers? And Laura from New Hampshire is asking, how can humane education play a bigger and vital role in education today with all the issues that we've heard about that schools are facing? So I wonder if you could, you co-founded IHE to advance the field of humane education, to train people to be humane educators, to educate the next generation of solutionaries. So I wonder if you could outline for us, what is the role now of IHE in this critical time?
Oh, those are a lot of questions. So I'll start by saying that we're 29 years old this month, and the purpose of the organization, the mission of the organization has not changed. And I would say that our work is more important than ever. This live stream is called Meeting the Moment. And Steve articulated what this moment is like right now. And I don't see a lot of hope for the future if we don't educate a generation of solutionaries. And we're seeing our societies coarsen and become more polarized and more divisive and less able to listen and collaborate and work for change. And the humane education and the solutionary framework are designed to enable people to become solutionaries. And just the short definition of solutionary is someone who is able to identify unsustainable, unjust, and inhumane systems and transform them in ways that do the most good and the least harm for people, animals, and the environment. And you've heard that already before. In order to be able to solve the problems we face, we need to have this mindset that believes that problems are solvable, that is willing to listen and learn from others and hear different perspectives, and then to collaborate and cooperate on identified problems and really understand them thoroughly, investigate them thoroughly in order to work together to solve them. And that mindset and that approach, it in some ways, it is the answer to all of our problems. And we need to educate this generation that can think in these ways, and a generation that has their compassion intact. We're human beings with compassion, and that compassion can get fatigued. We've heard of compassion fatigue, and it can get coarsened, but we don't have to let it. If you wouldn't mind, Michael, can you pop up one of those other questions again so that I can really make sure that I address them? What role should, one at a time would be great. What role does humane education play in preparing students to be critical thinkers and compassionate problem solvers? That is literally the definition of humane education. That is what this work does. It prepares people with their big hearts and their ethical framework to think critically, to use systems thinking and strategic thinking and creative thinking as well. That is the very definition. And
beautiful.
Pop one of those others up, if you would.
Yeah, the one from Laura as well, yeah.
How can humane education play a bigger and vital role in education today when schools are dealing with too many issues, budgets are challenging, and awareness is minimal? Well, this is the big question, isn't it? And I would say that the answer is that humane education is not an add-on. The solutionary framework is not an add-on. We are training teachers around the world. You heard, Michael, you said more than 30 countries, to integrate this framework into their existing curricula. Now, obviously, it does take some work to do that, but it's work that enlivens the whole curricula. I think one of those other questions was, how can we educate not just to be a worker, but also to be an ethical citizen, which of course is beautifully articulated because it's not an either or. This is a both and. When you overlay the solutionary framework into the curricula, then what happens is that the academic skills that we want students to gain, the literacy, the numeracy, the scientific skills, well, they all get to be in service to solving problems that students care about. It makes education relevant and meaningful. And when Steve was talking, he shared the story of Renato, thinking that his would be the last generation. I've been doing this work for a long time, and I have watched over the years students become more and more hopeless about the future. I mean, literally expressing that they don't think problems can be solved. And teachers often share this feeling as well. A number of years ago, I was doing a workshop for teachers, and one of the prompts at the beginning of the workshop was a slide that said, in 50 years, I want the world to be, and then you fill in the blank. And the first teacher to raise her hand said, still here. And I was startled by that comment. And I asked, did anybody else sort of share that feeling? And half of the teachers in that workshop raised their hand. Still here. So this kind of hopelessness and despair about the future, it's only gotten worse since then. I was just in New York City last month, and the kids did not think it was very likely that we would have a future that was more peaceful and sustainable and just and humane. And this is dangerous. This is really dangerous, because if we don't believe that a better world is possible and that we can play a role in helping to bring it about, we're not going to try. That sort of hopelessness is going to pervade our learning, and we're not going to be as excited to learn. I mean, Steve talked about that as well. Those students who don't expect 13%, enjoy school. This is criminal, right? School should be a place where all of these incredible tools for thinking that we have and learning and all this knowledge can be applied to what we care about. And we worked with some students when we were initiating the Solutionary program. We did a pilot, and we worked with some students, 6th graders. Well, we trained their teacher, and their teacher initiated a Solutionary unit in that class. And we went back to talk to those students last year, 6 years later. So now they're seniors. And one boy they all talked about how profound that learning was, and it stayed with them all of those years. This one boy said that he wanted people to ask themselves, not just what do I want to be, but what difference do I want to make? And when we infuse learning with this meaning and purpose, the difference that I want to make, then learning the basics turns into deeply learning for the sake of making a difference, and everyone wins, right? The kids win, the school wins, the teacher wins, the communities win, our world wins. And Julie said that as well. And I cannot think of anything more important than reimagining education for a world where all life can thrive.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for outlining that. I also wanted to show the map of our presence, kind of our global presence that kind of flashed earlier, make sure that we highlight that so people can kind of get a sense that really, this is really a global movement, presence in North America, but certainly many other countries, over 30 countries around the world. So really appreciate you highlighting that. Anyone has questions for Zoe, please drop them in the chat. We'll try to get as many as possible, and we'll bring you back for the Q&A. So in a moment, we're going to be getting to your questions. So if you have not yet sent them, please do so now. But first, I wanted to address this one question that we got from Danera from Houston. And she's asking, how can people watching this live stream get involved, whether they're educators, parents, students, advocates, what have you? So in response to the changing landscape, we are inviting you to take part in a bold fundraising campaign, and it starts now. If we could drop the campaign link in the chat, please. We are seeking to raise $200,000 to support humane education across the U.S. And we have a $100,000 match. That's our campaign page that you're looking at right now. The match is on all donations received before the end of July, which is the end of our fiscal year. So your donation will be doubled. And the campaign is called, as you can see, Meeting the Moment, because this is really our moment, right? To come together as a community of educators and solutionaries to build a better future for people, animals, and the planet. And this moment is sort of an invitation, to all of you to invite you to join us by clicking on the campaign link in the chat, or you can text to this number and make your gift so that you're able to support this movement, because this is really about building the future that works for everyone. We really can't wait for someone else to fix this because we're going to be waiting forever. I think we're the ones that we've been waiting for. So please donate and share the campaign, become a team leader, and expand the reach and impact of your gift by inspiring others to join you. Now, we'd love to hear from you. So drop your questions in the chat, and we will answer as many as we can, and we'll address them there. So I wanted to just look at some of the highlighted questions that we got live on the platform. So this one is from Aubrey. Forgive me if I mispronounce her name. She's saying she was so thrilled to learn about your models for education. I recognize it from lots of other research and best practices. I'm curious how to bring it to scale. What methods, theories of change have you already engaged in to try to change systems like education, which are entrenched? It's a really great question. Thank you for that question. Anyone would like to address that? Julie.
I'll take a first stab at it, and then others can join in. So we are really deliberately working on lots of different levels, because we understand that systems change takes lots of effort, it takes time, it takes intention. So we are joining with other partners to expand our reach. We are working with schools to completely rethink their curriculum, think about where they're going to put solutionary teaching and learning into the curriculum as students have their experience from K to 5, K to 8, K to 12. We are working with networks. We are very proud to be collaborating with partners with Prepatech, which is the premier network of 30 campuses across Mexico, and they are integrating solutionary teaching and learning into their project-based approach. We're collaborating with Rondine in Italy, which is an international peace center that hopes to be working with 80 high schools within the next 3 years to integrate the solutionary framework into their social impact projects. We're working with networks. We're very proud to be partnering with High Tech High Graduate School of Education, and we'd love to partner with you. So let us know if you're part of a network, if you're part of a network of schools, if you're connected to governments, if you're connected to organizations, if you this is how we're going to expand our impact. So, and we are continuing to also work with individual teachers. We have a partnership with the Global Schools Program at the UN. And through that, we're finding amazing teachers around the world, many of whom I think are on this call, and who are working with their students in these ways. And then those teachers are helping us to take the lead and open up the work with networks in their community, in their country, in their area of the world. And it's growing really quickly. It's not just individual teachers. And we just invite you to join us and to figure out with us what the best way to approach this would be to expand it where you are.
Can I add something, Michael? Not so much about the question, which Julie beautifully answered, but I'm in the comments section. And I just want to mention, in terms of coalition building and networking, that we at the Institute host a free platform, a circle platform. And all you have to do is go to the Institute, sign up for a free account, and you'll get a dashboard. And the dashboard has join the circle community. There's a circle starting like in 15 minutes for lots of people that are doing animal protection, environmental work. Like, there's continuing ed on there. So I just want to say, I see in the chat, like, how can we connect? There are lots of ways to connect, but that's one, is circle. It's free to you. That's why we have it. It's to help build our networks, to continue our educating, to, you know, it's just about a year old or maybe a year and a half. It's fantastic. Just had to add that.
We can't hear you, Michael.
Sorry about that. If we could, thank you so much. If we could just drop in the chat the link to the Circle Network, that would be fantastic.
Michael, can I build on that same theme for just 1 minute?
Yeah, of course.
This power of networks to transform, because on one level, we talk about changing the purpose, the mission of education. To not just I want a job, but what problem can I solve? And I'd love to see that purpose change, and that's why we're trying to build this coalition, a large network of people moving in that direction. At the same time, change happens at small levels in schools. It doesn't always happen from the superintendent, district level, state level. Sometimes it happens with 2 or 3 teachers in a building coming together with a common goal, supporting each other to shift the purpose for just their classroom, their kids, for a unit. And then that change spreads. So we are looking to create change on a more global scale. And we're also recognizing the power of those of you out there who, my friend Josh from What School Could Be is talking about the power of teams, teachers working in teams to create that change. The SMC, the Solutionary Micro-Credential course we offer, we invite people to join together in teams to look at how to implement the solutionary framework within the unique context of their school and community. So just want to put those change theories out there. Some of them are on a global scale, and oftentimes change in education happens very locally.
Yeah. Thank you so much for putting a pin on that. I also just wanted to mention that we did get a number of questions about AI. There's a lot of interest around this area of work. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to all of them today. But this does give us an indication that there's huge interest, which means we really should have a separate event really focused on this topic. And we're also, in fact, experimenting with new strategies to leverage AI to advance solutionary learning. So stay tuned for that. We also got a number. Okay, and this is a great question. Also, we got from Jennifer. She's saying, "I'd love to hear Zoe's perspective on how educators might navigate the political tension and obstacles surrounding any learning beyond what's on standardized exams." I think a lot of educators are probably thinking about that right now.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. And I would say that I can't think of a more effective way to explore, teach about, investigate politically tense issues, any kind of issues that are considered controversial, than the solutionary framework. Because you begin with identifying a problem. Interestingly, we had a student who wanted to solve the problem of immigrants in his community who were taking jobs away from people in his community. That was the problem he wanted to solve. He, of course, was hearing that problem because it's all over the news. It may have been a problem that, people in his own community were discussing. And so he started researching it. And he quickly discovered that immigrants in his community were not taking jobs away from members of the community. And he had to change the problem that he wanted to address. And what I found so fascinating about hearing that story about this boy was that the solutionary process was useful right out of the gate. You didn't even have to get to the end where you're implementing your solution for learning to have happened, deep learning that would then enable he and his classmates to really identify the core problems. And I'm not making a statement that there are no problems with immigration, not at all. It's just that he realized that his problem wasn't really a problem. So what is the core problem you want to address? And then you listen to everybody. You seek out the perspectives of others. You seek out the perspectives of a range of stakeholders. You listen with an open mind. That process is inherently an antidote to the polarization and division that we are experiencing in our society. And then as you really become a good systems thinker and a critical thinker, and you're looking at the underlying causes and the range of impacts, when you get to the point where you are innovating phase 3, a solution to the problem, you're doing it with everyone in mind. You're doing it with all the stakeholders in mind, with anybody who could be affected, people, animals, the environment. And that entire process, we believe, is a corrective to the coarseness and division and tensions that we face. And we are experiencing that communities welcome this across the political spectrum. This is not education that is just for one political group or another. Not at all. It's for everybody to be a solutionary, because that's what we all have to become. All of us.
Beautiful. Julie, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to add one little thing to this, because I love your answer as always, Zoe, and I find it really, really inspiring. And I want to say something very practical. I'm the pragmatic one here to Jennifer, and that is, we have this proliferation of portraits of a graduate happening by schools, by districts, by states, by countries, this whole state of New York, and they do not say that what they want from their graduates are high standardized test scores. They always say they want critical thinkers. They want people who care. They want people who can work together and collaborate. And what we're finding is extremely persuasive is to help them see how what they're doing in their schools may or may not be aligned with building towards that portrait of a graduate, which in many cases has had lots of input from lots of different people. And people have said, they've come together, they've said, this is what we want education to develop in our students. And if you want that, you can't just do business like usual. And so it gives us an entry point to say, wait a minute, we have a different way that maybe you want to consider organizing around if this is the outcome you really want.
Beautiful. So just to kind of close out our Q&A discussion, the last question, or I guess really a set of questions that we got, was about looking at the future. And like this question, for example, from John from Greenfield. He's asking, what is your vision for a better world? And this one from Tati, what is the future of education in light of these, global crises, that we're facing? Or this one from Desian from Portland, what inspires you the most about the future of education? I'd love to throw that to you guys, Steve, Julie, Mary Pat, Zoe, if you can address that.
Yeah, I'll jump in. We are sailing through a storm right now in education, for sure. But I sort of am inspired by this really powerful and improbable lesson from sailing, which is that we can use the winds pushing against us to sail forward faster. So we have this sort of push against an education that focuses on problem solving, on looking at looking with compassion at the world. We have an opportunity, though, with the sort of dismantlement of the national agenda on education, to pick up the mantle at the state level, at the local level, and recalibrate the purpose of education. We can use those winds that are pushing against education now to sail forward faster, to rewrite the purpose of education around not what job do I want, but what problem do I want to solve? How can education prepare kids to be live lives of joy and purpose as knowledgeable, creative, compassionate citizens of a global society where they're guided to make the world a better place? That's what gives me hope. If we can grasp a mission like that for education, we have an opportunity now. That's what inspires me.
Beautiful. Anyone else want to add to what Steve has said?
I want to add to the word courage. The courage of educators and the courage of students right now inspires me every day, gives me hope. I see it in every corner of every classroom where people are trying to implement solutionary teaching and learning. And my heart is with all of the educators out there who in this moment are saying, you know what? We need to focus on this. This should be the purpose of education. And to every one of those students who said, I didn't know I could make a difference, now I know, and now I'm going to. And they add that identity of being a solutionary to who they are. As Zoe said, we all win. We all win.
So is this the part where we're like saying what makes us hopeful?
Yes. This is
Okay.
it.
Love those so far. I'm gonna follow Julie, because that answer is never elusive for me. It is a hope that renews itself with evidence, semester after semester, year after year, as I've been in education, that no matter how tough it is, and it's tough, like Steve said, we're sailing into a storm, through a storm. This vocation, this profession still attracts some of the best and brightest people to it. And that's, that's who we are. We're educators. And I just feel like that it's the people who join this profession that really give me hope.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh my gosh, I guess that leaves me, but I really have nothing to add because my colleagues have just said, I'm feeling shivery all over because of the truth of what has been shared here. But I will add my favorite quote about hope from Professor David Orr. He said, hope is a verb with its sleeves rolled up. And I know that whenever I start to feel hopeless, it means I just have to roll up my sleeves some more. And as soon as I do that, then the impacts are obvious. And so I hope everybody who's here today is rolling up your sleeves in whatever ways you are in the field of education and beyond. And I thank you so much for being here and for rolling up your sleeves with us.
I love it. Thank you so much. I think, the real question isn't whether education will change, but whether we will lead that change. That's, I think, something that all of us, should think about. What is our role in leading that change? But today you've heard what solutionary thinking looks like in action, rooted in compassion, powered by critical thinking, driven to solve real-world problems. So now I'm honored to do our giveaway that I mentioned earlier in the event. We are going to draw from all of the different comments and questions that we've received on the stream. And the winner is Story Smith, who was watching from YouTube. So Story, thank you so much for being part of this. And please send us an email with your contact details so that we can share with you the Solutionary Way, the book that you have won as a result of participating in this chat. So I'm very honored to thank you so much for joining, for everyone for joining us today. I think in a world that feels kind of divided and discouraged, I hope that you come away seeing how humane education can and does give us a way forward. And we're really excited to launch our fundraising campaign to sustain this work despite all the challenges. And you can support this work by donating, by sharing, by staying connected, and every gift, whether big or small, fuels our collective impact. I encourage all of you, you can text to the number below to donate to the campaign. And I encourage all of you to become an advocate for humane education and become a solutionary. And the best way to become a solutionary is to keep up with our movement. So please follow us on social media, wherever you're watching from, and support this vital campaign right now, so that this can be the beginning, not the end, of how we show up for the next generation. Because I really feel like this moment means stepping up, and really that means all of us, because together, we can create a more just, sustainable, and humane world. So with that, I will leave you with our music video, and thank you so much to our incredible guests, and thank you, all of you, for being a part of this conversation and meeting this moment together with us.
In a world that's crying out for change, we rise with hearts and minds engaged. With every child, every choice we make, we plant a seed, the earth awakes. We see the beauty, we see the pain, we know the power of a single name, to stand for justice, truth, and grace, to build a kinder human race. We are the dreamers, we are the doers, we are the voices breaking through. From the classroom to the corner of the world, we're shining light, we're walking true. People, animals, and earth in view. We are the solution, me and you. Teach the children how to care, to see the world through lenses fair, not just to learn but to inspire, to lift the world, to reach up higher. We ask the questions, we seek the why, we dare to live with open eyes, to change the systems, write new songs where love and justice both belong. We are the dreamers, we are the doers, we are the voices breaking through. From the classroom to the corner of the world, we're shining light, we're walking through. In view, we are the solution, me and you. So here's to hope, to empathy, to truth and interconnectivity, to every teacher lighting flames, to every student learning names of all who need our love today. We are the dreamers,